Good evening. On behalf of Nazareth, I would like to welcome you to Nazareth's first professional virtual workshop for educators for the 2021-22 school year. This evening's presentation is entitled Language Advocacy, Planting the Seeds Every Day. My name is Sally Barnes. I am the Nazareth president for this year, and I will be hosting this evening's virtual workshop along with Nazareth board member Alexis Thornton as our moderator. Our virtual workshop series is free to Nazareth members through the generous sponsorship of the New York State Language Regional Bilingual Education Resource Network at NYU. The purpose of this organization is to provide ongoing support to educators of language learners in districts and schools statewide. Nazareth would like to take this opportunity to thank them for their very generous support of our endeavors. The recording of this workshop will be posted on the members only page as soon as it is ready. This workshop is scheduled to last 1 hour with 45 to 50 minutes devoted to the presenter. The remaining time will serve as question and answer with the presenter to answer your questions. Please use the chat box to ask questions at any time during the workshop. Our moderator will organize these questions and share them with the presenter as relevant and/or at the end. For CTLE credit and/or proof of attendance after the workshop, from our home page, click on Virtual Workshops in the menu bar and then scroll to the bottom of the page where you will see a link to the CTLE request form. This will take you into Members Only where you can submit your request for credit. And now, please allow me to take this opportunity to introduce you to our presenter, Anna Cartwright. Anna Cartwright received her Bachelor of Arts in French Language and Literature from Nazareth College of Rochester, where she also minored in Italian and obtained her teaching certifications for French 7 to 12 and special education. She completed her Master of Arts in French Cultural Studies at the NYU Institute of French Studies. She currently teaches French 2, French 2B, and AP French at Orchard Park High School in Orchard Park, New York. Anna, thank you for sharing your time with us, and welcome to the virtual workshop.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Sally, and welcome to everyone tonight. I want to start off by giving you a little bit of a brief history about my journey with advocacy. So my journey began when I was in college. I majored in French language and literature, like you heard, and I got my master's degree in French cultural studies. And in August of 2008, I moved from my hometown in Webster, New York to Orchard Park, New York, which, if you know the Buffalo Bills, their stadium is in our district. And shortly after I moved to the Buffalo area, there was a financial collapse on Wall Street, and the Great Recession began. And you may remember that we began to feel the effects of it in the education program in New York State in 2011. This headline from the Buffalo News, this was actually referring to me. I was one of the people who received tenure and a pink slip at the same board meeting. In our district, we lost one middle school team and a 6th grade exploratory program. So this meant that we lost 2 language teachers in the district. And I was the casualty of the 6th grade exploratory program because the teacher who was teaching in that program was able to bump me. So in November of 2011, I went from Orchard Park to Pioneer School District, which is in the Yorkshire area, Yorkshire Arcade area. It's to the southeast of the city of Buffalo, and it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's one of those districts where the school's in the middle of a cornfield, and there are more cows than kids. In September 2014, I was lucky enough to be able to go back to Orchard Park from Pioneer, which was nice because it was a lot shorter commute. I was able to go back. I was recalled when a teacher retired. So my position was never recreated. I was just able to return to fill a different vacancy. So as language teachers, we're fans of cultural comparisons. So I offer to you this cultural comparison of the Orchard Park School District and the Pioneer School District. The main things they have in common is that they are both school districts in Western New York. They both offer Spanish and French in grades 7 through 12. In Orchard Park, the socioeconomic status is affluent, whereas at Pioneer, the socioeconomic socioeconomic status is much more disadvantaged. In Orchard Park, 90% of the students continue on to college, whereas at Pioneer, 78% of the students continue on to college. In Orchard Park, language courses are valued as part of a high school transcript. They are seen as the way of getting into prestigious colleges. At Pioneer, because fewer students go to college, this isn't necessarily their viewpoint on languages. Students, many of them do not ever leave the area. Most parents grew up in the same town where they're raising their kids. In Orchard Park, the parents tend to be more well-traveled because they are more affluent and tend to have the money that allows them to travel. In Orchard Park, students are motivated by the promise of sports and travel as a way of using their language skills, whereas at Pioneer, students question whether they will ever need to talk to a foreigner. And I can't tell you the number of times I got asked, when am I ever going to need this in my life? Both districts need to adjust how languages and language instruction are valued in the community. Because in both districts, there isn't a real strong need to study language beyond the basic values that they had. In Orchard Park, language is valued merely as a brick on the road to college. And the issue at Orchard Park was that they lacked a community support for creating a strong program. And that was evident by the fact that two language teachers were cut when the need came along to tighten the budget. At Pioneer students tend to value language instruction simply as a means of fulfilling a graduation requirement. And so in that district, they lacked student and parent support for continuing language study beyond the very basic graduation requirements. And that was evidenced by the fact that I taught both at the high school and at the middle school, and there would be 5 sections of seventh grade and 5 sections of 8th grade French at the middle school, and that would reduce down to 2 sections of French 2 at the high school. So there was a large number of students who were lost in the transition from the checkpoint A to checkpoint B. So this led me to what's ultimately become the essential question of my career. How can we change the way our society values the importance not just of language learning, but of multilingualism? I've been asking myself this question over and over again, from back when I was laid off all the way through to today. In January 2019, I applied to be a member of the Nazareth Leaders of Tomorrow program. And that program's application's coming around again in March. If you're interested in joining the program, I highly recommend it. It's a great program. It provides you with scholarships to many of the wonderful events and trainings that Nazareth does throughout the year. The Leaders of Tomorrow program also helps you put together a project. You look at your leadership skills as they pertain to our profession, and you try to put your talents to use in a way that will benefit the whole profession. On my application, I wrote, as a teacher who was previously laid off, advocacy is my passion. I plan to study advocacy techniques practiced by school districts across the state so as to bring new ideas to my district program and to offer my time, talent, and service to our Nazareth Advocacy Committee. This presentation that you're seeing today, this is the fruits of my labor and the work that I did on my project through the Leaders of Tomorrow program. In November of 2019, I was taking a design course for CTLE credit in my district. And I was learning how to use Google tools to sort of create more interesting handouts, infographics, different things that I could use in my classroom. And one day I was playing around with the program after school, and I came up with this design. It was a lot of fun to put together. And also as part of that course, I had to create a design that was mainly text-based. And this is the one I came up with. You'll notice it says learn another language, learn another language, learn another language over and over again, with different reasons why you should learn another language highlighted in different colors over the course of the design. These may look familiar to you, as these were ultimately used by the Advocacy Committee later on that year as part of or later on the following year, I think. They were used by the Advocacy Committee as part of a postcard program that NYSA felt was doing to reach out to lawmakers and influencers about language study. So one of the things I learned in my research in the Leaders of Tomorrow program is that advocacy can be proactive or reactive, but it's far more effective if it's proactive. Oftentimes when we think about advocacy, we think about it in a reactive sense. We remember advocacy when suddenly a program is in danger or we're having to fight for what we need. But advocacy is best when it's practiced on a regular basis, because then we never have to turn around and participate in a more reactive advocacy plan. So how can we integrate proactive advocacy into our routines? I've been trying different ways of doing this throughout the last few years. And today I'm going to share with you some of the things that I do to work towards proactive advocacy in my regular routines in my school. The first thing you can do is work on building on your strengths. And in order to build on your strengths, you need to know what your advocacy strengths are. One of the things I created for my district was this model that advocacy, we often think of it as promoting our program in order to get more kids to sign up for classes. But I really see advocacy as a three-sided approach. It's not just promotion, but it's also working to grow our program and the things we can offer to students, and then to celebrate student success. The more we celebrate student success, the more the word will be out about our program and how good it is for students to participate in. So for my district, I created this chart, and I worked on it with I brought it to my department meeting, and my department head allowed me to sit at the meeting, and what we kind of did is we did an inventory of the different ways that we promote, grow, and celebrate our language program. So here's what we came up with. I took notes in blue to represent the items that we already were doing. Things like having an elective fair in the middle school, running the poster conference through Winnefleck at the high school, signing students up for future classes, running honor societies, international club, elective courses. We work to grow our program through offering additional opportunities to students, such as field trips, traveling, going to museum, bringing in Latin dancers to do in-house events, our Latin program participates annually in the Cartwright, and we celebrate our program with awards programs, the Seal of Biliteracy, our honor societies, and various other little motivators. In green, I marked down all the elements that we were in the middle of creating at the moment in time when we worked on taking inventory of what we were doing. And then once we had these in place, we were able to kind of see where the holes in our program were. And so we brainstormed things that we could do to sort of fill in those gaps. And those are the things I put in red. Ideas like bringing students to our elementary schools to do mini lessons, working to get our 6th grade program back, working towards creating a world language coordinator position, creating promotional videos for course selection, etc. This proved to be a great opportunity for my district and for my department, I think. Sometimes when we come together to talk about what we do, we have such strong personalities that we occasionally fight. But taking the approach of focusing on what we are already doing well was a great way to get people brainstorming, thinking about advocacy, and then making suggestions rather than disagreeing about different ideas. I made a similar chart for myself to focus on ways that I, as a single teacher, am working on promoting, growing, and celebrating languages. And instead of looking at what I was doing elementary, middle, and high school, that didn't really apply to me because I'm a high school teacher, I looked at what I was doing with students, with parents, and also with administrators. And I'm about to share with you some of the ways that I work towards promotion with these three groups. So once you've established what you do well and what your strengths are, the next step is to create some advocacy goals. How can we integrate proactive advocacy into lesson plans? Well, the principal I work for currently, he has this saying that in order to change school culture, you have to put forth the biggest effort with the youngest students. In Orchard Park, when I was first hired, we had a huge issue with students at homecoming, the dance, taking off their shoes to go onto the dance floor. And we had a lot of students who were getting hurt because they would wear these high heels, mostly girls I'm referring to here. They would wear high heels because they looked pretty with their formal dresses, and then they couldn't dance in the high heels. So they would take off the high heels, just like they've seen family members do at weddings. And they would go back out into the dance floor, and then someone would inevitably stomp on their foot, and they'd end up leaving the dance injured. This was an issue we had to deal with. And so in order to handle the issue, we started looking at how we could change things, not with our seniors, but with our freshmen. Administrators started going into freshman classes, particularly our freshman boost class, to talk up the events of homecoming, but also to talk about why maybe high heels are the best option for going to homecoming. And they offered the suggestion to students, if you want to look pretty with your heels, you can bring a bag that you can check at the coat check. And in your bag, slip a pair of sneakers in so that when your feet get tired of wearing the heels, you can switch into sneakers. They started pushing that with every freshman class that came up after that. And by the time that class got to senior year, the entire culture of the way we handled dances had changed because students had learned their freshman year why that was a bad idea. They had seen our emphasis on why it needed to change, and they had adapted to the new solutions we had offered them. I propose that in order to change culture surrounding languages, we need to put forth our biggest effort with our youngest students. Now, you might be saying to yourself, I teach in a middle school or I teach in a high school. I don't have the very young students. A lot of times when the students come to me, they're already turned off by the prospect of. I say, well, those students may be turned off on learning a language for themselves. You have to keep in mind that they are the future parents, the future voters, the future administrators, and the future lawmakers who are going to be running our schools in the future. And even if it almost feels like a lost cause to try to approach these stubborn adolescents about the importance of language learning, if we can turn them on to the idea that learning language from a younger age is important, Generation Z, they've proven to be a generation that's ready to fight for what they want and fight for the generations following them. So there's a good chance that if they see the value in language learning, even if they didn't start it early with us, that they'll fight for early language learning with their own children. I had a 7th grade technology teacher who had this saying. He would say, convince me that it was my idea, and I would say yes. Anytime we proposed a project, we would bring it up to him. He would say, you're talking about it like it's your idea. Convince me that it's my idea. If it's my idea, I'm more likely to agree to it. I propose to you today that it would be best for us to convince our students that the importance of learning language and the value of early language learning is their own idea. So how do we do this? Well, I like to use cultural comparisons in my classroom as an advocacy tool. I have for many years taught French 1. I'm not doing it this year, but I've taught it for many years in the past. And one of the assignments I like to use in French 1 is in our school unit. When we talk about school schedules, I have students do a cultural comparison between many factors relating French schools and American schools. We look at realia with school schedules. Here's one from the high school where my friend teaches. I like to have the students go through and count how many languages a student is studying. And so we'll look at the schedule and you can see that there's Spanish and there's English and there's French. And I thought there was Latin, maybe not in this schedule, but in some of the other ones I have, there's Latin as well. And students look at that and they start to realize that, hey, French students, they're not just taking one foreign language, they're taking two. And then when they look at this student's report card, this is one of the other pieces of realia I like to show. At first, they all love to complain about French handwriting and how they can't read it. But then they look at the fact that this student, she's taking French, she's taking English, and she's taking German. So she has, again, more than one foreign language on her schedule. And then when they come back to fill in the chart, they compare how many languages are studied in France versus the United States, and they start to see that it's not the same, right? That more languages are being studied in France. And that's a great starting point for a conversation on why French students might want to study more than one world language. In French 2, we do a reading. It's not exactly from an authentic resource. It is a teacher-edited document. And the reason it is because I'm still training my French 2 students on how to do longer readings. But we do a reading about Princess Elizabeth of Belgium. Princess Elizabeth of Belgium is King Philippe's oldest daughter, and she is in line to become the future queen of Belgium, the future monarch of the country. I like to do the ACTFL recommended, what's it called? The ACTFL recommended, I'm blanking on the term. This model of questioning about a reading does come from ACTFL. The IPA, there we go, the IPA reading assessment format. And one of the questions in the IPA format has students making hypothesis about something they read in the reading. So there's the sentence in the reading that says, Elisabeth est le premier futur monarque belge qui fait ses études en néerlandais. So she is the first future Belgian monarch who is doing all her studies in Dutch. So my hypothesis question is, if Princess Elizabeth's family speaks French, why do you think she chooses to attend school in Dutch? And this question helps to open the door for a conversation about the importance of knowing more than one language, especially when you're living in a country that has more than one official language, and the importance of being able to talk to everybody in the country, especially if you're going to be their ruler someday. I teach AP French as well. And in AP French, we do an entire unit on les identités linguistiques, in which we investigate linguistic minorities around the world. One of the ones we really delve into is Canada, which Canada is only about 20 minutes from my school district. It's not far at all. We take a look at where French is spoken in Canada. Is Canada really bilingual? We look at the Law 101. And then we take a look at the way language instruction happens in schools in Canada. And we look at 4 different models of language instruction. We talk about the Core French, Core English program, which is similar to our program, where students who are native English speakers, they would spend their whole day in English classes except for one French class somewhere during the day. We talk about the immersion model, where students who speak English at home would enroll in a school where they would speak French all day long. We look at the extended French program, which is available in Ontario. And this is similar to the bilingual model of the US. It starts in 4th grade, and students get half of their instruction in French and half of their instruction in English. And then by the time they get to high school, they take, in addition to their French literature and French language classes, they also take geography and history in French. And then there's the intensive French model, which is available. It's available in British Columbia. And that's kind of a program that's meant to jumpstart a core English core French program. For a few years in middle school, students will do 80% of their instruction in the opposite language and 20% in their native language. And then halfway through the year, it flip-flops. So it gives them more exposure, kind of like an immersion program, more exposure to the other language for part of the year. They do this for 2 years. And then afterwards, they continue in a core French or core English program. It's most likely a core French program in British Columbia. They continue in a core French program after that, where they're just taking one French course a day, but they're able to jump in at a higher level because they had that immersion background for the equivalent of a full year in middle school. After we study these 4 models, we take a look at this question. Si vous étiez parent au Canada, quel programme choisirez-vous pour votre enfant et pourquoi? So if you were a parent in Canada, which program would you choose for your child? Well, you'll notice here I have it, students responding in a flip grid. That was the model I used while we were teaching remotely. But now that we're back in person again, what I like to do is I like to divide up the students in the class. So I have a group representing each program. And then I have 2 students who represent the parents of a French child. And all of the other groups have to try to present their program in a favorable way to the parents to try to persuade the parents to send their children into that program. And then at the end, the 2 students who represent parents have to choose the best case and explain why they're going with it, and justify their answer as to why they would choose the program that they've chosen. Every time I do this sort of kind of debate persuasion activity, the majority of the students end up choosing the immersion program as the one they see as ideal for their students or for their children. So that's a way that we can bring our students as future parents on board with the idea that early language study and language study in general are beneficial to our students. Now I want to take a look a little bit at some of the outreach I've done over the years to parents, because usually if a parent is on board with something, they will bring their child along with them. And I want to give a little plug here to the Motivated Classroom podcast with Liam Printer. I don't know if you've heard of this podcast before. It's an excellent, excellent show. He has an entire episode, it's episode 57, that's devoted to parent beliefs on language learning motivation, in which he presents the research that different researchers have done to kind of investigate how parent beliefs influence student attitudes when it comes to language learning. So I highly recommend that you check out this podcast. Basically, the argument is that whatever the parents believe in, they're kind of bringing their children along with them. That children will tend to have the same beliefs. So one of the things I do as parent outreach, obviously, is to talk about goals, not just course goals, but program goals during the open house that we have at the beginning of this year. I like to get into talking about our proficiency levels and where I'm hoping their child will be by the end of the year. And then I also like to remind them about the program goal of intermediate high and talk about the seal of biliteracy. And I do this no matter what level I'm teaching, whether I'm teaching my AP students who qualify for the seal of biliteracy at the end of the year, who qualify to apply for it, or whether I'm talking to my French 1 students, parents who are just starting off in their language study. I think it's important for parents to kind of see what options are available to their children along the way. And since we've had the Seal of Biliteracy program in our district, we've seen huge increases in the number of students continuing language study beyond level 3. Also at Parent Open House, I like to give out a flyer called Encouraging Your Child's Study of French. When I was in school, my parents, they're not really language people. My mom failed Spanish and Latin, and my dad didn't continue Spanish beyond level 1. And when I started learning French, neither one of them knew what to do with me because they couldn't help me study. They didn't know the language, and they often asked the question. They would say to me, "You're kind of on your own here," and they would ask the question, "I don't know how to help." I hear the same thing from parents in the district. Parents of very motivated students want to be able to help them, encourage them, but they don't know what to do because they took the other language. They took Spanish, or they took German, or they didn't study a language. So I have this list of suggestions that I created, things that parents can do, like giving their child a dictionary and like investing in their language learning by buying them a tool they can use for language learning, downloading French music, watching movies together, etc. I've put a copy of my handout in the share folder. I don't know if Alexis or Sally, you want to share that out with people, along with several of the other resources that I've referenced throughout the presentation, so that if you're interested in making something similar or just using mine, it's available to you. I also have been working on creating parent outreach newsletters that parents can opt in to receive as a PDF attachment to a remind message that I send out. So I looked at creating newsletters that would do things like fill parents in on some of the computer programs we're learning in class, let parents know what the goals are for each unit. Again, talking up the New York State Seal of Biliteracy. And then some of the skills that students are taking away from language learning, for instance, circumlocution. I talk about how it's an important skill for children to have and how parents can help children practice circumlocution even if they don't know French. They can practice by playing Taboo or Ellen DeGeneres' Heads Up game. Another way to reach out to home is to send home positive postcards. This was a practice that I took from Pioneer. I absolutely loved it. There was a policy at Pioneer Middle School that once every month we had to send a positive postcard home to one of our students. And it was just a 1 to 2 sentence message that lets the people know at home that this kid did something great this month. And it doesn't have to be your top performing student. A lot of times I sent positive postcards home to students who were struggling, but who had done something great or who had made a big stride at some point during this month. It gives the student something to be proud of. It gives the parents something to be proud of. And it kind of reminds the family that that there are benefits to learning language, that your child can really grow in this class, not just in their other core classes. And then there's administrator and community outreach. I always like to invite my assistant principal to attend particularly interesting lessons, new activities that I'm trying out that I think are really engaging. I like to pick, when my formal observations occur, I like to pick out lessons that are going to reinforce cross-curricular connections, because those are very important to the administrators in my district. I also have been working over the past few years to share things I've learned in language classes to the rest of the district. I think that can be helpful as well. For instance, I was inspired by the Inspiring Proficiency podcast by Ashley Iwari from Massachusetts. And it inspired me to create an entire podcast course on how we can use podcasts for professional development. And about 70 teachers in my district have had the opportunity to take this class and to kind of expand their horizons and learn more about their own fields by discovering podcasts in the fields, in their own fields of study. It's also helpful to find out who's in charge of your district's social media account and district newsletter. maybe in your department, consider picking one person who can be the liaison between your department and the person who's in charge of the district media. You can invite them to come to interesting events, or if they can't make it, hand a kid a camera, have them take a bunch of pictures, and then submit some of the best pictures with a good caption that they can just plunk right into the district newsletter. This reminds all people in the district, whether or not they have children in the system, that positive things are happening when it comes to world languages. It's especially important to share photos and articles about things that celebrate language learning. So achievements like Honor Society inductions and Seal of Biliteracy celebrations. You can also share photos and articles about field trips, French club events, Spanish club events, and other fun classroom activities. When I taught 8th grade, we did a big unit on clothing, and we always had a fashion show. So I was always sure to get photos of the students dressed up in some wild and crazy outfits to share with the community. This next idea is one I'm working on. I only just got a classroom this year after almost 13 years of teaching. And one of the things I'm trying to push for is I want a bulletin board in my room, because I came with no bulletin boards. I want to create an alumni hall of fame to show where some of my past students, what they've been able to accomplish with their language skills. So as students have been graduating over the past few years, I've been asking them, when you go to a French-speaking country, please send me a postcard. I want to hang it on my wall of fame so I can show that you went off into the world and you got to practice your language skills firsthand. Essentially, it's important to do whatever it takes to demonstrate the value of language learning to the community that you're in. And you may have some other ideas of your own based on your community and local values and the local programs that are available to you in order to publicize what's going on in your district. I have to put in a plug here for NYSAFELT's Advocacy Committee. Marie Campanaro and Barb Patterson have done a great job of putting together materials that you can use to reach out to parents and to administrators in your district to push forward some of the new things that are coming down the line, especially with our new standards in world languages. I strongly encourage you to check out their website on the NYSAFELT website. They have really great materials that they share, and they're available for everyone. And that's about it. In the folder that the ladies have shared with you, I've given you access to some of the cultural comparison lessons that I've used for French. If you're a French teacher, you're welcome to take those and use those. There's some sample language learning newsletters that I've created for my students that I've shared a copy with you. There are all sorts of materials that I referenced throughout my presentation. Whatever you want, feel free to take it and use it. And if you have any questions or want to share further ideas with me, you can always reach out to me at acartwright@opschools.org or at my Twitter handle. I'm at @papillonanne. That's all I have for my presentation. I'm going to take this down so I can see my screen again. Ladies, were there questions that came up?
Actually, Anna, I have a question. I really enjoyed your presentation, and as Rachel said, it's wonderful and thought-provoking. My question is, I love the positive postcards. I love the newsletters home. Are you, for those of us in larger departments, are you alone in your efforts? Do you work with a team of people? You know what I mean? Like, are there positive postcards from other departments? Because that's always helpful if it's across the language spectrum.
Yeah, that's a good question. I can tell you when I was at Pioneer, this was a requirement for every teacher in the school. The positive postcards, like that was required of everyone. I'm pretty much the only, I think, doing it in my district right now. I am one of 11 world language teachers in my district. I've shared different ideas with people over the years. Some people take some of them, some don't. I think it just all depends on the personality of my teacher, of my fellow teachers. And in my district, it's nice because we do have a lot of freedom to make contact home in different ways. And each person does it a little differently.
No, thank you. I think it's great. I think advocacy is only as powerful as we make it if we get all of our teammates, you know what I mean? And that's our colleagues across the schools, middle, elementary, and high school. Yeah, there's a comment Rachel's saying it would be nice to have a session on building cohesion within a department. Or building teamwork. So it's lighter load, right? If you're making a newsletter and you have somebody doing it from another. But I love those ideas. Thank you so much.
I can tell you, like in our district, there might be 4 teachers teaching Spanish 2, but I'm the only teacher with the French 2s because we have a smaller French program than a Spanish program. So when it comes to doing some of those French specific things, I really am kind of on my own. I mean, there are other French teachers, but they're working at other levels. So.
Anna, can I ask you about the newsletters? I love the formatting of them. What program did you use?
So I started off trying to create them in Canva.
Okay.
And got frustrated. And that's just me personally. I don't like Canva because I want control over everything. I'm kind of a control freak. So I ended up using Google Slides. Oh. And then you can just save them. You can download them as a PDF and send them out that way through Remind. You can upload them to a Remind text.
That was my follow-up question, was how did you disseminate them to parents?
Yeah, so when we were having live open houses, I would share the Remind sign up with parents right there. And then if they were interested, they could sign up for it, but they didn't have to. That was one thing that my administration pushed on me, is like our parents get inundated with documents and information. So let them choose whether or not they want to receive it.
Then my other question, you mentioned having students go into the elementary school. And I was curious, do you have a French Honor Society does that? How often do they go?
We have a French Honor Society. I would love to see them do that. I'm not in charge of our French Honor Society. So they actually aren't doing that right now. I've been looking at different ways to get it in otherwise. Possibly I was contemplating making it one of the project options for the end of AP French, post-AP exam. But with COVID, we actually can't send our kids into other buildings at the moment. So that's on hold for a few years.
The other thing
and I have a couple questions too. Number one, I love your little triangle with the promoting further with the grow and the celebrate. Is that your idea, or did that come from somewhere?
That's my idea.
Very nice. And then what's that?
Oh, I said thank you.
My follow-up is, since you started to do more of your advocacy within the trenches, basically, which I absolutely love, have you seen a difference in enrollment, or do you feel like this is starting to pay off, or is it too early to say, or have you had this have you been doing things for too long to be able to really see a shift, or do you see what I'm asking?
Yeah. In 2016, I had 5 students in AP French. I started off this year with 33, but at the moment I only have 25. So it did increase quite a bit. And the number of students wanting to continue has increased quite a bit. I lost a bunch, unfortunately, at the beginning of this year to the fact that my AP French class is taught at the very end. One of them is taught at the very end of the day. And the lure of open campus was just too strong for a few of them. But yeah, no, we've definitely seen a huge increase in the number of students we're able to retain, which is fortunate because we lost at our middle school. Most of our teachers are required to be dual certified, and at the moment we don't have any who studied French first before Spanish. We mostly have Spanish teachers who are teaching French in our middle school, and when our last French specialist at the middle school retired, we saw a huge decrease in the number of students taking French, partially because they hired a Spanish teacher to replace her, and then they didn't have enough people who were able to teach French to cover the sections that they did before. So we're in the middle of a little dip in enrollment from the bottom end, but we've been able to maintain staffing because we're keeping so many students on beyond level 3.
Well, and going from 5 to even the 20s, that's a really nice testament to what you're doing in the classroom. Love it. Yeah,
A big part of it has been getting the word out there about the seal of biliteracy. The students really want to be able to earn that. They're really excited, and that's one of the big things that's keeping them in the program. That's been a big part of the advocacy, is just putting the word out there that exists. It's a possibility for them, and making sure the parents know, because there are some kids who are continuing on because their parents want them to earn that honor.
Anna, can I ask, so you're in the same situation, I'm sure many of us are, where students have to choose which language. Do you guys do any sort of presentations or language fair? What do you do to rope them in?
Are you referring to at our middle school?
Yeah, when they have to first choose which program to enter.
So we had that exploratory program, but that was cut in 2011. One of the things that program had done for us was that kids would come out of it liking them both and being frustrated that they had to choose between one or the other, but that's what fit into a middle school schedule. And they would take Spanish through level 3, and then after that they would either add in French 1 or they would drop Spanish to start some French, which was kind of cool, because then we weren't losing, even though they would drop Spanish after level 3, we wouldn't lose them completely. That unfortunately has disappeared, and now we have an electives fair at our middle school. It was actually started when we discovered that the business department was sneaking into some middle school classes to promote their program, and then everybody complained because it wasn't equal for everybody. So now all the departments, not just world language, not just business, but everybody's sending in people to the middle school to talk up their programs. The 8th graders spend a full day kind of exploring different possibilities before signing up for classes. This year with COVID, we're going to be doing it through videos instead of bringing high school students down to the middle school to talk about it. One of our retired teachers, though, does like to come in to our 6th grade classes before they choose their language. For the English classes in 6th grade, she does a little presentation on some basic words in both languages so that they can kind of get a little smattering of what the 2 languages sound like. That's what we're offering at this point. We, as a department, would love to bring that exploratory language program back, or start pushing exploratory language down into the elementary building. That's our ultimate goal. But it's kind of been a one step at a time type of deal in my district. Our big push at the moment is to get a coordinator, a language coordinator. In our district, we have coordinators in just about every other subject except for ours, which is kind of curious. And the job of a coordinator is to take new standards and do the training to the rest of the teachers in the department. And now is the perfect time for us to really be pushing for one, because now we have new standards in New York State.
Anna, there's a question in the chat box. Do you build the seal into your upper level classes?
Kind of. We've been pushing a portfolio program that is based on the assignments that we do in level 4 and 5, where students can actually take classwork and do reflections on it and submit that as part of their portfolio towards that, what is it, 2, I think it's box 2E on the seal template. Are all upper level teachers on board? No. That's my honest answer. No. We're working on that.
Can I ask what program you use for kids to house all their portfolio elements in?
We're just using Google Drive.
Okay.
Students, actually, we use Google Classroom to run the program, and students just have to upload all of their pieces into Google Drive.
Last question from me. Do you have any travel abroad programs in the high school for either French or Spanish?
Yes, one of my colleagues, she runs a trip every other year. And let's see. If the situation stays well, they'll be going to France, Italy, and Spain this summer. They were supposed to go to Ecuador in March of 2020, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, because I found in our school, I was able to start a Quebec program for 8th graders, which I think is it motivates also for, it's a motivational factor for the kids when they're choosing, because we have an exploratory program and they choose in 6th grade their language for middle school.
Our middle school goes to Quebec as well. And then the Spanish students started complaining. So now there's a French trip to Quebec, and there's, in a normal year, obviously, and there's a Spanish trip to Puerto Rico.
That's what, oh, can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
So in our district, that's the thing we have trouble with. Like the French want to promote and do a lot of things to get it out there, but then our administration tells us, well, the Spanish have to do it too. So if you want to do it in French, you have to do it in Spanish. So it kind of ties our hands as teachers. So we're trying to be creative in finding ways around it. Like I asked for, because I'm an AATF member as well, a French Honor Society. And they said, well, we can't offer that unless we offer a Spanish one. And I was like, okay. And so like I wanted to go into the elementary grades, but we don't have a group to do that. So I asked the upper level teacher, can you ask your students in, AP or, the upper level classes, we do dual credit classes, if they would be interested and make that part of an extra little thing that they could do just to promote French. And then that's kind of like a way around it. It's like trying to be really creative in our district because they're kind of tying our hands a little bit. And the biggest thing promoted in our district, unfortunately, is sports. It all is around sports. And like you were saying, the importance of language is you're defending it constantly. And it's very frustrating. And I even tried when I was at the middle school, I would have movie nights, to watch Beauty and the Beast, and they could pay $1 and I would make crepes for them, and things like that just to get the students. I even tried teaching French classes one night a week at the local library to try to get younger kids involved, to maybe have that continue on in the district, that, but it's so hard to try to be creative to work within their restraints. And that's kind of where we are right now. We have we're supposed to have 3 teachers. I'm duly certified. This year I'm teaching 1 French class and 4 Spanish. So it's frustrating because now technically we have 2 full-time French teachers and 8 full-time Spanish, and I'm in the middle. So I want to be the French, I want to be a French teacher, and that's my first passion. Not that I don't like Spanish, but it's kept me in a job for 25 years now. So I must, I do enjoy it, but my first love was French, so I'm trying to find ways to get those numbers up. And I don't know, unless someone has some other ideas, my hands are sometimes tied.
When it comes to running a trip, I can offer you some suggestions that might be able to help. I can tell you that when I worked at Pioneer, the 8th graders, the 7th and 8th grade every other year would do a trip to Quebec. And they made it not a French trip, but a language trip to Quebec. And then I think they took us to a taqueria in Montreal. And we took like a flamenco class, and that's how they sold it as being French and Spanish, even though it was definitely much more of an advantage for the French kids who were going. That's a thought to sell it to your administration. Like,
we do non-school related trips. We have done France. Actually, we're ready to go to Martinique a year ago, and we had to cancel 2 weeks before we left. Swaz got her trip in, but we were ready to go in April, and we missed that. So we do trips, and you know, those sorts of things, but we call them non-school related. That's how we get
Okay.
the, you know, we work around that. But like I said, it's just so frustrating. That's why I got some ideas from you today, and I have, you know, in the past have ideas from Marie Campanero. I've used her PowerPoint with our presentation to the 7th graders to show the, you know, a level playing field, so to speak, between the French and Spanish with that. But if anyone else has ideas and could help, that would be great.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, everybody. Unfortunately, I think we have to wrap up. Anna, thank you for the very informative presentation. You've given us all a lot to think about. And thank you, Alexis Thornton, for co-hosting with me. As I mentioned at the beginning of this workshop, it's been recorded. The recording will be made available shortly on our website. For CTLE, please use the request link at the bottom of the virtual workshops page on our website. Share your new knowledge with the NYSFL community. Tweet your insights or ask your questions using the hashtag NYSAChat. You can post your own questions about this evening's workshop or any topic at any time. If you have any questions after today, please email us and someone will get back to you as soon as possible. On behalf of the NYSFL Board of Directors, thank you for attending this evening's workshop. Have a great rest of the evening. Thank you again so much, Anna.
I had not heard that about French and East Aurora.